I'm Amy Davison from Gallery 1, and this is the Art to Go Project Story Quilt Card, inspired by Faith Ringold. So to start for our project tonight, you're going to need a few simple supplies that you probably already have. You're going to need some white paper, cut down to the size of a greeting card if you want to be able to mail this. You can leave it larger if you just want to make an art project and not send it through the mail. You're going to need some construction paper, scrap paper, or other colored paper, or even some scrap fabric quilt, especially if you have little bits and pieces. That's going to make this collage very pretty. You're going to need some scissors for cutting down your paper and fabric, some waterproof pens, Sharpies, or other markers, a brush, something to put some glue in, and the glue. I have some handy watercolor pen brushes that already have the water in them, and then they're a little brush. Otherwise, you might want to get a normal paintbrush out with a glass of water. You could get watercolor pencils, watercolor palettes, or some water-soluble markers, and that's going to help us fill in some color on this card. So Faith Ringold would make a story quilt card based off of a memory that she had. I want you to close your eyes and think about a memory of you have. It could be your grandma's house, it could be a fun vacation, the picture that might have been included in your package from my friend Krista. It was about riding a bike and seeing a snake on the bike ride. So you can pick something that you have in your mind that you can draw and bring to life in this wonderful card that you're going to share with a friend or family. So mine, I'm going to start drawing on my little piece of watercolor paper is what I'm using because it's what I had on hand at home. And I'm going to draw a picture of gooseberry pie and some gooseberries from when I would go visit my grandma when I was a little girl. So to draw my pie, and you guys can draw anything that you want on this simple little card. You can make it super detailed and make it not simple too. How have you guys been doing lately? I'm excited that we're starting to see some friends and family now that we've moved into phase 2 for our county. Hope you all are finding things to keep occupied and enjoying this lovely weather we've been having. It's gotten rather warm rather fast and feels like summer, hasn't it? Here's my lines for my pie pan. I'm going to put some little squiggles of steam curls coming up out of my pie. In the comments section, please tell me what your favorite treat is. Maybe your favorite pie flavor. I'm going to draw some little green, they'll be colored green, little gooseberries here next to my pie to tell me what flavor it is. Gonna put myself a little horizon line here, ground where my pie is setting on this cupboard that I'm imagining here, bringing back from a memory. A little bit of shadow squiggles here under the berries. So this is a really fun technique to do with markers. If you don't happen to have watercolor pencils on hand, or even watercolors, you can use a water-soluble marker. These ones are Mr. Sketches, so this one smells like mint. Crayola ones work great too. Put a few little lines of color on here. A little bit. So these gooseberries that I'm drawing are a variety that are rather green. They barely start to blush pink when they start to get ripe. So I have yellow and green combined on that part. I'm going to bring in some yellow on my pie crust. Now, because I'm going to be using a watercolor technique, I don't have to fill it in totally solid, okay? The water will help pull the pigment further across the paper for me. I'll show you what I mean. Scoop my other paper over. This little brush, you can go like this and squeeze it, and the water pumps right down into this bristle. And then I just simply wiggle it back and forth, and I start pulling up some of the pigment and paint. And I let it just glide across the paper. If you're working on a cardstock or watercolor paper, you're going to have more time to wiggle and move this around. If you're using thinner notebook paper, don't get it very wet, otherwise you'll start to pull up little pills of your paper and it's going to rip on you. I'm going to dab it on my paper towel, just squishing it and squeezing it out. If you're using a cup of water, swish it around a little bit. I'm going to color my little gooseberries. Ooh, they're nice and bright. These would be super tart. Add just a hint of green that's already on my brush here. I'm going to pull that up and stick it right there in the slit of the pie. I'm going to give myself a blue pie pan, because I have blue Pyrex pie pans. And that'll give us a nice bright color here. A little bit of that, a little bit of the lighter blue, so that they'll blend together. Again, you can see how I left some white space in there, and that's going to fill in when I add my water. Such a fun technique, you guys. When I found out you could do this with regular markers, I was super excited. Especially because watercolor markers or water soluble markers are often pretty inexpensive in the kids section. You don't have to go to the expensive part of the craft store or grocery store or anything. So there's my pie coming along. We're going to add a little red and white checkerboard drawing here. Make it look like it's on a summer picnic table. Maybe I should have outlined this a little bit with a marker first to get my lines in there. But I think this will work fine. Make sure that when you are finished with your project, not only should you share it with a friend or a family member or somebody, but make sure you go on to Gallery One at www.gallery-one.org and share your beautiful artwork with us. Or you can go onto our Facebook page and do the same thing. We like to see what everyone's up to. Plus it feels like show and tell, which is fun. Okay, I'm just softening these little checkers to make it have the same soft quality of my illustration here. I don't want the tablecloth to have more of a harsh line compared to the other part. And I'm going to come over here. I'm just going to pull a little bit of more pigment from up high. And I'm going to bring it down here and let it kind of fade out on this bottom row. Because we are talking about a memory, right? Memories kind of get a little soft and fuzzy with time. So now that I have my little pie, my favorite dessert here, all colored in, the next step to making this look a little more like a quilt is making some paper little blocks that will look like quilt blocks. Now, if you were one of the recipients of our Art to Go kit, you're going to have some colored construction paper in your kit. You guys can cut pieces out from a magazine. You can cut pieces out from wrapping paper or, gosh, anything that looks fun and colorful for you, okay? I'm going to use just a rainbow of colors here. I cut one strip. I have a whole stack of paper colors here. I have 5 colors. I'm going to just snip them into squares. I'm going to put a little bit of glue in my dish. If you have a glue stick, you could just skip over this step and use a glue stick. And I'm going to build a little border all the way around my card here. Be careful not to squish glue into the edges. That would glue your card shut, because that would be very sad. And my quilt pieces here that I cut would not work well for an actual quilter because I did not keep them very straight. But that's going to add a little bit of fun and whimsy to this card. Do any of you have quilters in your families? My great aunt Elda was a wonderful quilter. You can see I'm just working my way around, sticking some little squares around. Now, if you were working on a project and it was maybe more of a garden scene and you had a piece of fabric with a little bird on it, you could cut that little birdie out and stick it right on there and it would make a really cute addition. I'm going to cut this piece down. I don't want to lose quite as much of my pictures I'm going to. In fact, let's cut a few more of them skinny. I'm going in a rainbow pattern. You guys can do whatever you want. There's just something really relaxing about gluing little pieces of paper, you guys. Okay, so now that I'm on this corner, I'm going to be able to put a bigger piece again. Go a little taller here. I had a little mind blank. I couldn't remember what came after blue in my pattern. There we go, red. I had no purple that fit this kind of color. I'll wipe my fingers off on my thing so it's not as gluey on top of my paper. We have our window cracked open for some cool air. So nice and peaceful in the neighborhood today. Tomorrow there's supposed to be a thunderstorm though. It'll be pretty exciting. Okay, so I'm at the top row. I might have just enough to make it clear across again with my little short pieces. If not, I'll cut a couple more. Make sure you press them nice and tight so they stick on there and they don't fall off before they get to where they're going, or as your friend slides it out of the envelope. Which way do I want to go? We're going to go this way. That one was a little long. I could either snip it short or I'm just going to curl it around the top of my page and squish it into place. I'm running out of glue, so I'm going to put a little blob in my dish. Now I am using just Elmer's glue in my little brush here. It will still set up and ruin my brush if I let it go for too long. Sorry about bumping the table there. It will set up and ruin my little brush. So as soon as I'm done with this project, because it's kind of warm today, I'm going to go and wash this really carefully so that it doesn't ruin my brush. I thought it was going to end up perfect, but look at my pattern's going to get broken up right here. But you know what? That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and put a last piece of yellow in there. And a little smudge right there. Okay, now because I flew through this fairly fast, and I want this to look a little bit like a quilt, I'm going to add a little bit of detail on a couple of these colors. Add some little black dots to the orange ones. If you were using pattern paper, you'd already have this kind of mixed pattern going on. My cameraman's tummy is growling, guys. Must be because of this pie. Be careful if you're drawing your painting isn't dry yet, about putting your hand on it just like I did. Fortunately, I didn't put that much water on, and that part is already okay to touch. Let's see, I'm going to add some little chevrons here on the yellow. I could use my markers and add it on here too if I wanted. I'm rotating my card for the easier direction of the chevrons. Okay, now the blue ones I'm going to add some swirls. Kind of like the little swirls here that were up here on my pie from where it was steaming. Add some of those same little snail shell shapes here. Be really cute to add like an old button on here, or use some of the fabric scraps or something from a memory or a loved one. Would add a little bit of extra sweetness to this and sentimental value. Okay, so you can see that I'm starting to add in some details. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple little things that make it look like they're a little stitched, okay? On the red ones, I'm going to make these little dashes that look like a straight stitch, like it's holding my quilt paper on. If you had a free afternoon or morning that you're working on this, be super cute to actually stitch on your card with some embroidery floss, some thread. Let's do it on the green one also, because that one still has no details. Okay. There's the outside of my card. Now I can open it up, write a super sweet message in here. I'm going to sign my name on the back to say that it's my artwork. I'm going to date it so that I remember, the person knows when I made it for them. And there you go. This is your story quilt card, inspired by Faith Ringold. Please, again, share it with us at Gallery 1 at www.gallery-one.org, or share it to us on our Facebook page. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. It's a late Friday night here for me, so I hope you have a wonderful weekend, and stay healthy and stay creative. Bye.